As an adult, when have you found it necessary to lie to your parents for the sake of your relationship? My mother is a bit of a helicopter mom, well-meaning but not above lying to me in an attempt to save me from getting my feelings hurt. She initially opened my acceptance letter to college, so she could get rid of it if it was a rejection. She then tried to claim they must have opened it at the border, but I called her out on it. The worst was when she called my college program coordinator to accuse them of setting me up for failure, then tried to hide it. It was a bit of a shock when I went for a meeting with the coordinator and it started with, "Your mom called." As a result, I lie by omission to my parents. Whenever there is something serious going on, I handle the problem, then tell them what happened. I can't really go to them for advice anymore because I just don't trust my mother. How much credit card debt I acquired when I was laid off from my job right after I bought my house? 2.5 years of living off basically credit cards was rough. Finally back to a point where there isn't a requirement and paying it off quickly. My mother would be devastated. I like baseball sometimes, but my dad could go to a game every single day, and I'm just not into it that much. He calls me up once every 2 weeks to go to a game, and I always say yes. I've cut glass, broken dates, called out of work, and feign an interest in something that I'm not extremely excited about, just so I can spend 3 hours sitting with my dad. We don't have anything in common outside of sports, and most things turn to arguments. But I'll always lie to him and pretend to be excited about a game, so we can have just one thing that's ours. That's actually really sweet. He wants to spend time with you. I have season tickets to baseball and hockey, and not once in 10 years has my father gone to a game with me. I'm pretty open with my parents, but my grandfather died believing I was gonna become a stepmom to a wonderful little girl and 2 crazy boys, by eventually marrying a man I was crazy about, who dumped me less than a week before Grandpa died, at home of prostate cancer that had spread to his liver and his lungs before it was found. Ex said we weren't spending enough time together because I'd spent the last week doing a full schedule of college classes and then commuting an hour to spend nights taking care of my dying grandfather at home because he refused treatment and pretty quickly reached the 24/7 care stage. I never told Grandpa because that time wasn't about me, and he didn't need to be sad for me while he was dying. That's horrible, but I'm so glad for you that your ex showed his true colors before you got married. I knew my ex was never going to be a supportive person that I needed him to be. That was one of the reasons we divorced. My ex had to constantly lie to her overbearing mother about her whereabouts all the time and numerous other things. It honestly did get in the way of our relationship numerous times because of her constant stress and anxiety over her mother. She had a very abusive childhood, and one of her biggest fears is her mother not loving her if she disobeys her. So she puts on this ridiculous pedestal. I can only hope things get better for her in that department, as she also has the "you don't abandon your family" mentality ingrained into her. Ironic that her other biggest fear was me not loving her, but then she goes and pushes me away. Hi, I'm living your previous life currently. How did it come to an end with her? I love her dearly and want nothing but for her to find happiness, but I've had all I could deal with. Our relationship is starting to negatively affect other parts of my life, like work, friends, and family. I know being with her is not good for me, but I can't help leave her when I know all she has been through. When she asked me if she had been a good mother when I was small, I put aside all the childhood hurts and assured her that she had done fine. You did so well. My therapist thanks you. My mother loves ceramic elephants. She's nuts for the stupid things. Her house is full of them, and her pride and joy is one that I bought for her a couple of years ago for Christmas. It sits front and center on the mantelpiece, ready to be commented on by anyone who comes into her living room. She has no idea that I earned the money for Christmas presents that year by writing a particularly filthy bukaka erotic story. My mother is under the impression I've never taken drugs. She knows I drink and smoke, but I think I have no interest in drugs. My father was a prolific drug taker and used to abuse and rob my mother due to it. When my mom asked recently, I told her I hadn't, when in fact, I had a very dependent relationship with drugs as a teenager and only stopped in my early adulthood. Because my partner at the time dealt drugs to my friend, who then died from an OD. It shocked me to my core. It only then clicked the real-world consequences of taking drugs, be it dying or being a lowlife. I cut all ties off to that world, went cold turkey. My mother was under the guise I was in mourning. Kudos for sorting it out. Thanks, man. It wasn't ever an addiction, but it was on the cusp of spiraling out of control. Why is my deadbolt always locked when I'm expecting her over? Oh, sorry, it's been stinking lately. Must be broken. In reality, you may not barge into my apartment because I'm a grown person now and my property is not your property. My spouse is from the Philippines. Her family constantly asks her for money to a point where she can't even afford to treat herself. She and I were becoming very stressed as bills piled up. She told her parents that she was laid off and I was the only one bringing in money so that she does not feel obligated to send money back home so consistently. Her 12 siblings are more than capable of making money, so now they are being asked to contribute more. To put this into perspective, it came to a point where she was sending 3/4 of her monthly income to the Philippines. Her siblings were nowhere near this amount. She also brought some farmland for them so they can grow their own food and grow crops to sell. She plans to have a motel or hotel built for more consistent income for them. My stepmother is Filipino, so I get it. She has always sent money to her family in the old country, even though they were professionals and made decent incomes. Family is everything, and they think because she lives in Canada now, she is rich. To be honest, she does tell them that she's very successful. She isn't, but they definitely take advantage. How do you feel that the bulk of her income will be going to her family at the expense of the family that you and her have together? I can see this becoming a problem. When you decide to buy a house or have kids, or maybe your relationship doesn't find it to be a problem. My father is a retired Southern Baptist chaplain. He had his own church before getting back into the army. My mom is also from a thoroughly Baptist family. I'm somewhere between atheist and agnostic, but mostly just apathetic. My parents think I'm still Christian and that I just don't like churches. The truth would just hurt them. So I still bow my head during prayers and show up to church on the important days. CME Christian, as my mother calls me. Christmas, Mother's Day, and Easter. Sorry, this is a second hand, but struck me as a "you've got to be kidding me" that I have to share. I met a trans girl through my work. An attractive, young, Western-born Asian who you would never guess was born male. We became friendly, and over coffee one day, I asked her how her parents took her transition. My mom's okay, but my dad doesn't know. But I thought they were together. They are, but dad was born in China and is kinda old-fashioned. So it turned out, whenever she visited her dad, she'd wear a loose jacket and no bra, tuck her hair up under a ball cap, and lower her voice to a more masculine tone. Her dad was clueless. He'd talk to his son about his life and goings-on, and she'd just feed him a line of BS, because she wasn't about to share stories of working as a cocktail waitress and what she did with her boyfriend. Of course, dude. So my mom is such a controller. I lied to her about my relationship status, and when she found out, she literally flipped and demanded that I show her all the texts I sent and received from my girlfriend. I judged that to be a breach of my girlfriend's privacy, especially since she's an adult. So I refused to, which my mother dearest told me to get out of the house. Like, literally, pack your things and leave. So I did. My aunt, on the other hand, raised me when I was a baby, so she's like a second mother to me. So I never had the will to tell her I was homeless, because I knew she would worry. So I just lied about it, and I've lived in my car for a year, working and studying. Aunt found out in the end, but oh well. Well, when my aunt found out, she was pretty shocked and kinda heart-stricken, but my uncle is the more emotional one of the two, and he literally cried for like 2 days straight and was pretty blue for the rest of the week. Anyways, they forced me to move into their place the very night they found out, since they lived like 20 minutes from where I was living.